Welcome to Crypto Sapiens, a show that hosts lively discussions with innovative Web3 builders to help you learn about decentralized money systems, including Ethereum, Bitcoin, and DeFi. The podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and it is not financial advice. Crypto Sapiens is presented in partnership with Bankless DAO, a movement for pioneers seeking freedom from the limitations of the traditional financial system. Bankless DAO will help the world go bankless by creating user-friendly on-ramps for people to discover decentralized financial technologies through education, media, and culture. Hi everyone, I am your host, Humpty Calderon, and today I'm talking to Tracheopteryx, core contributor at Yearn and Coordinape. We go over the early days at Yearn, its initial incentive model for contributors, and their philosophy for rewarding people to thank them for doing cool shit, and how that evolved into Coordinape. As he says, we are not trying to program people to do our bidding. We are trying to be an open and welcoming space for creative and like-minded people to invent this future with us. And we can add money as a financial support for people's inherent creative motivation in doing the work they are called to do. So without further ado, let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about, your role at Yearn and your role at Coordinape before we jump into Coordinape itself?
Yeah. So I got pulled into the black hole of Yearn at DeFi summer in late July when Wi-Fi was exploding onto the scene, and just kind of fell into the vortex and just started working on it all the time. And so I became one of the early core contributors. And I have a 9-month-old. I'm taking my son that I need to take care of. Some apologies if you hear some baby crying here in the background.
That's fine.
But he'll be joining us now. Yeah, so I started working at Yearn. I've been a core contributor there for the last year and have helped build out our governance system. Yearn started in pure chaos, in the most decentralized you can. And so we had to create everything from scratch. And, we chose not to build it in the way of things that had come before, in a traditional hierarchical corporate model, but to try something new and to really go after the ethos of decentralization in all of its different ways. That's led to a lot of fascinating innovations like Governance 2.0, which Gabriel Shapiro and I did, which we also call constrained delegation, which is the way that Yearn's governance operates, and also Coordinape. And Coordinape is, came out of our desire to do grants in a more effective and decentralized way.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, obviously, I think Yearn is recognized as having started the ball rolling early on in terms of the governance of these protocols. So that's incredible to see that your role has, you've been at that organization, if you will, since the beginning and just kind of helping that evolve and grow. And so I recently learned that Coordinape was kind of spawned because of that need, right? You were talking about this hierarchical organization trying to do something different. So maybe we can talk a little bit about, what inspired the development of Coordinape in terms of how it helped Yearn, but also in terms of how it could help governance as a whole. Yeah.
So early on at Yearn, because we didn't have a defined leadership or executive structure, we didn't have ways to make decisions. And so we had to figure out a way to make decisions. We had to grow a decision-making facility. And we did that first with YIP 41, which was, we empowered the Yearn multi-sig to make some key decisions. Like how to spend money, how to hire people, stuff like that. And as soon as that happened, we figured we're like, okay, well now we have to pay people. So, how should we do that? And, we set up some recurring grants for some of the people that had been around since the beginning, like working, 80 hours a week for no money. And then for a lot of other people that were in the community that had just been like contributing in different ways, we just gave them gifts. And we did this, it wasn't like a grant program where you apply for a grant or you have to prove it. It was very different. And, people were just doing cool shit. And so we just gave them money as a gift. And there was no quid pro quo, no requirements for this other than to, just to thank them. And that was great. And I think I'm really proud of that program. A lot of people don't do it like that. But, we found pretty quickly the limitations of that, which is that, a small group of people, kind of at the center of a network, trying to decide of all the hundreds of contributors in the broader network who should get money is a inefficient process. It's not a great mind for making that type of collaborative and decentralized decision. And so we had to invent something better.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I love the idea or the fact that, people were just open and willing to participate in growing something that was new, something that was interesting, something that they were most likely using, which I think is kind of the value of, what DeFi and these open protocols have enabled, which I think is one of the reasons why there was a huge explosion over the last year in terms of DeFi. Right? Because there was this cooperation, this collaboration, not just within organizations, but, outside of these organizations too, like stacking and what became the money Legos, right? The composability of these different protocols. So it's really wonderful to hear that there were systems or there was a structure in place to support people in developing the protocol, but the team also realized, look, this is probably not the most efficient way for us to be spending our time, probably also not the most fair way for us to do this. And so Coordinape was spawned.
Well, I think it's really interesting to zoom out, and whenever you're working on something new like this, zoom out and think, what am I really trying to do? Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of community grants? Is it to like, I want you to make X, Y, and Z. It's an if-then type of compensation stream, and then you do something and then I give you money for it. Is it to try and, is it like a marketing expense? Are you trying to just throw some money around and get people involved in your protocol? Like, what are you really trying to do with this money in this process? And what we're really trying to do at Yearn, and what a lot of protocols are trying to do, is, add money as a financial support for people's inherent creative motivation in doing this work that we're all called to doing, right? And if you look at studies of human incentivization that go back to the 50s, the model of carrot and stick, the model of if-then compensation is, kind of widely out of date and ineffective. Mm-hmm. These types of compensation models work for a limited set of heuristic tasks, which algorithmic tasks, like, that can be done in a stepwise sequence without a lot of lateral thinking. But if you want to incentivize, carrot and stick compensation works contrary to people's natural motivation for open-ended tasks. And there are great studies of problem solving where, when you give people financial rewards, it actually takes them longer to solve some types of problems because that stimulus, the reward stimulus, narrows your focus. But in DeFi we're trying to expand our focus, right? And I think you can see this a lot. As soon as you start throwing money into some communities, the spirit goes away because money compresses the world around us.
Right.
We're trying to do something different.
Well, it becomes incentivized not for the act of doing something or the act of making a difference, but you're being incentivized financially, and that really becomes the narrative. So it's really, I guess, important to find mechanisms so that you compensate people, reward. I like the word reward a little better than compensate for my own personal reasons. But, rewarding people, I think, in a way that, acknowledges their contributions without attaching, like you said, that carrot to the stick saying, and the next time you want to do something, here's more money, right?
Yeah. We're not trying to program people to do our bidding, right? Right. We are trying to be an open and welcoming space for creatives and like-minded people to invent this future with us.
Right. So I think that's a great segue, and we'll look at how, and I'm curious to learn how Coordinape then is facilitating this new narrative, right? Where it isn't necessarily compensation driven, but we're still creating a more efficient and rewarding solution for everyone involved, both the people that are distributing these funds, the teams, the projects that want to see this grow, and also the people who are participating and doing the work.
Yeah, money is important, right? We all need money, and especially when you're in this environment of just massive wealth creation, like, you have to think, like, is this where I want to spend my time? How am I, is this going to fit my life roadmap? I need to make money too. And so it's important to figure out a way for the protocols to give money to the contributors. And that's where Coordinape comes in.
Yeah. And so Coordinape, works in an interesting way. And so here at the Bankless DAO, we use Coordinape, and it's a wonderful tool. In fact, the first time I heard about it was through the second epoch that just finished last month. And so maybe you can describe a little bit of kind of how it works, the mechanisms, of it, without maybe touching too much of like the economics of give, so that we can explore that later.
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of inspired by, I talked about the need at Yearn, but then also one of the co-founders, Zach Anderson, he at his previous company, Converge, used to use this method called Thunderdome to share money, where they were a very close-knit, trusted group of partners, and they would do projects together. They would get paid. They wouldn't decide ahead of time how to split the money. After the job was done, they'd like put all the money on the table and they'd share it. And they'd sit around the table and they'd divide it. And that wasn't I should get this, because I'm better than you. It went a lot more like, look, you did a lot of money. You should have this. You did a lot of work. You should have this. It was more of a giving. It was more of a gift economy. And, I had this experience with maybe some of you can relate. I had an electrician and he was a real sweetheart, and he would come over and he would fix something. And it'd be like, a couple hours worth of work. And he'd be like, just give me $50. I was in town anyways. And I'd be like, dude, like take 100 at least, and we would argue that way. Or like when you're splitting a check with your family or something. These are always just such better energies to be working in. They're so much more inspiring. And if you look at money, you've probably heard about gift economies where in, villages or in tribes, there wouldn't be a fungible financial currency. Instead, the house builder would come and build your house. And afterwards you would give them a ceremonial bracelet, and then maybe you're the herbalist and the house builder's kid is sick, and you help them and they give you some other token of appreciation. The fundamental difference between that type of financial network and a fungible economy is the difference between open and closed transactions. Mm-hmm. So with money, like you come and fix my light, I give you $108, right? That is the end of that transaction. That is the end of that relationship, right? Because it's a complete and fully coherent, fully encapsulated transition. There's no more bond between us created. Mm-hmm. But in the gift economy, when the house builder comes and builds your house, that creates a bond. It's an open-ended transaction. You owe something to this person, but not in a guilty way, in a pay it forward kind of way. And these bracelets or things that they would be given are symbols of appreciation for that spirit that's alive in that tribe. Mm-hmm. And we sought to bring this type of energy into the way, actually, that energy was already there. Like at Yearn, like it started from a gift. Andre gave billions of dollars worth of Wi-Fi to everyone in the community. He said, look, I made this cool thing. I don't want to run it. I want your help. So I'm going to give away total control over it. We didn't keep any. And that people talk a lot about why Yearn is so amazing and Andre is so amazing. That was fucking magic. Mm-hmm. That was pure magic. And you can be cynical and think all these different things behind it, but I know him. I know this story. I was there. That was a beautiful, magical moment. And that's what brought me to that community. And it like literally called out across the astral plane to call people in to do work because we were touched by that, right? And that is the ethos that you see in some parts of DeFi that we're trying to build out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very powerful statement, right? The fact that you're building something, there's an economic value to that, and then you just give that away. It shows the power of that economy, but also it shows the interest in sharing or relinquishing control, if you will, right? And saying, if you want to see this succeed, here is an incentive for you to continue working and developing that, right? For at whatever level that you can come in, participate, contribute, etc. And you've been rewarded. This is it, and you can see it succeed, and that value will continue to grow based on your participation, on your contribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I love to hear the fact that it was this kind of mentality, right? I'm going to use the word tribal, even though that sometimes is used to talk about things that become separate based on tribes. But, I think tribes have a wonderful definition or connotation, which is people within an organization helping each other grow, succeed, right? Because they all want to see each other do well. And so this idea that, within this community, within this tribe, you have individuals that are kind of gifting one another whether it be tokens or some sort of other token of appreciation for people's contribution, right? Where you said there's more open-ended versus closed transaction, this more kind of a stronger bond, because there's in the future I may be able to pay it forward, when you help me do something as you help me, and I'm more willing to do that because there's already been this bridge built between the two of us. So there's these relationships. And I think maybe, and I don't want to touch on this yet because this is something that I feel is good to kind of close on. And really that's the map, the network, the social graph that's being built. But there's almost a visualization of those bridges, right? In the Coordinape map, where you see these relationships between people and you see this relationship get stronger over time. I think it's interesting that this idea was kind of formed or ideated early on, and through the development down to what Coordinape is today, there is this persistence of this concept. And I think that's one of the reasons why Coordinape has become an incredibly valuable tool for DAOs.
Absolutely. Most of us have worked on close-knit teams before, right? On creative teams, or working with people that you really trust for a common goal, even a sports team, a military unit, a design team. When you're in these groups, these trusted groups, it's not about the money, right? You are doing things because you're doing it with people you care about, and you are working towards a common goal. And we talk a lot in blockchain about adversarial environments, right? And the reason, one of the incredible thing about Ethereum and other blockchains is that they allow for trustless exchange of goods, right? But human beings and human networks operate at different levels, right? You have base desires, you have an animal within you, you also have a peacemaker, you have a lover, you have all these different archetypes, all these different levels of mind, all these different levels of thought. And to try and apply adversarial mechanisms to a trusted group doesn't make any sense. You don't want to implement Baroque slashing rules in your family, right? You don't need that because you trust each other. And so you really need different mechanisms. And that's where Coordinape lives, on the canopy of the dark forest. Because there is that physics of blockchain, which constructs reality from intersubjective space into such a strong firmament that new types of life can grow. And these new types of life have different rules, and they're going to keep developing to levels and levels beyond. But trust, there is no human existence without trust. Trustlessness is not totally real. There's always trust at some level in any system. And really, human beings, Zach has some amazing quotes. One is that we move at the speed of trust, and that's really the fastest you can go. And so Coordinape is designed to support trusted membership groups to some level. I mean, there are also pieces built in case of bad actors. I'm not trying to be idealistic, but in general, that's the level of collective intelligence we're supporting.
Yeah. Well, I think we're starting to touch on, the configurability of Coordinape through the Give token. So maybe we can talk a little bit about Give. What is it, and how can it be configured to serve the needs of DAOs?
Yeah. So the Give token, it's not an ERC20 token. It's not on the blockchain. It's more like a poker chip. You could implement it on chain, but you don't really need to. And I'll explain why. So if your protocol wants to give, let's say, $10,000 a month to your community, to the contributors, as talked about before, you could have one person making those decisions. You could have a committee. You could do on-chain votes. Coordinape has a different model. Everybody that's, when we launch it, I'm going to describe the version that we're going to launch soon. So everybody that's in the network gets an NFT badge. And this can start, with just one person summoning a new gift circle. So the Coordinape product is called the gift circle. Or it can be, you already have a community and you can just give all the trusted members a badge to start. And now you can decide how that network grows. It can be centralized, one person or a council or a voting process, whatever consensus mechanism you want, can decide to add people. Or you can use our system, which is a decentralized vouching system. So for instance, at Yearn, 2 people need to agree, 2 badge members need to agree to mint a new badge. And you could make that be 10 people or 5 people or whatever. But that allows for the membership to grow in a decentralized way. Right? Now, once you're in that circle, every epoch, which at Yearn is monthly, we have monthly cycles, and at the last week of the month is the epoch where we do the gift circle. Every member of that network gets 100 give tokens. These are the poker chips, and they don't have the specific value. They're not traded, except for in this one specific way. So the request is that each person in that community give these give tokens to other people that they have directly seen providing value. So you're not supposed to be a compensation manager trying to decide what everybody should get. Instead, it's like those ceremonial bracelets. It's like, Banteg, that was a sweet tweet storm you did the other day. Like, here's 10 give. Or Dark Ghosty, like, you're doing an amazing job with the forums. Like, here's 10 give. Or Big Bada Boom or whoever. Like, just give you some of these tokens. Just give them some of these give chips. And if everybody does that in that way, it turns out that the resulting allocation is a really good distribution for that money. So you take that, at Yearn, we do $60,000 a month. So we take that 60,000 and then we just divide it by all the give tokens that were allocated. If you don't give your give tokens, they get burned. And then the money gets distributed along lines of that allocation.
Oh, that's definitely a lot to take in.
Yeah.
So let me start at the beginning.
Yeah.
You were talking about the give token, but you also introduced you introduced 2 things. You introduced the give circle and you introduced the NFT badge.
Correct.
So currently, is there an NFT badge, or is that something that is being developed as a future application for decentralizing, the gift giving or give giving, excuse me?
Yeah. So right now, we're still in the alpha development period, and which is all just database driven, and it's not permissionless. You have to ask to launch a gift circle, and we have limited ability to do that. And we've chosen to do that because we really want to learn a lot about this before we deploy the permissionless on-chain version. There's like a lot of experimentation to do, but we're pretty close to having a final version of the product, and then we'll launch that, and that'll be an open source and permissionless product. And right now, the way you get added to a network is with an administrator, adding your name into the website. But when we launch the platform, it'll be through this NFT badging system.
Got it. Okay. So currently, to deploy a give circle, or just to get started, say I'm a brand new DAO, Bankless DAO, and I don't have Coordinape yet. I reach out to an administrator and they set me up. And with that, we can kind of start configuring the way that we want to use it.
Right.
And then there's that, epoch where you vote for those within your community that you've either interacted with or that you've seen adding value to the community. And at the end of the epoch, whatever was allocated to that epoch gets distributed proportionally to the give that was voted on to individuals of that community. Did I follow?
Yeah, voting makes it sound a little confusing. It's more give it.
Sure.
It's gifted, but yeah.
Sure, giving, gifting the give token, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in lieu of voting, you're actually gifting give.
Right.
And yes, I was part of the last epoch, so I'm a little familiar with that in terms of you can give you can give 100% of whatever you have based on where you see value being added to the organization, right?
Right.
But in the future, you're saying there's going to be a bit more decentralized application where individuals can seek out a badge and then can select other members to have badges within that organization to then allocate this give? Am I following, or am I completely off now?
Close. Basically, it's exactly the way it works now, except the way that the membership is defined is not with a database entry, but with an NFT badge.
Got it.
And that badge
because
gives
currently,
you some,
like you're saying, it's off chain.
Currently, it's off chain.
Yeah. But in the future, it will be on chain and it will be driven through these NFTs.
Exactly.
Got it. As a representation of, I guess, your identity, if you will, like membership.
Yeah. And that gets to one of the really interesting futures of Coordinape is a kind of decentralized identity management.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, that's my domain. So I am going to tap on that.
Sweet.
Maybe not just yet, because I primarily work in the decentralized identity space, working with DIDs and reputation scores and integration. And in fact, my team is also communicating with some members of your team to see if there's a potential integration with that. So that to me is very exciting, because I think that as we continue to explore this conversation, we're driving into how individuals work for a DAO and how individuals can gain a reputation within a DAO and how that could potentially be transported outside of individual DAOs and create this, huge ecosystem where your reputation is transcendent, right? Your reputation is kind of like your resume, if you will, on chain, and says, look, I'm a Bankless DAO member. This has been my contribution over X amount of days, months. This has been how the type of relationships that I've created over time. And I think as a new DAO, I would want to see, or I would want to invite and encourage those type of people to be a part of my DAO, because I see that what their value is upfront, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. So maybe we can, we kind of started talking a little bit about, how Give works in terms of rewarding individuals. And we started talking a little bit about how the circle works. In terms of governance in DAOs and decision-making in DAOs, how does Give then allow for better decision-making, if you will, in a DAO?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it does only in the specific use case of sharing money. So we're not suggesting that the gift circle as it's deployed now be used for, let's say, voting on proposals.
So of course, and there's a richer ecosystem out there as far as DAO tooling and Snapshot, which I think is also one that, Bankless DAO utilizes, which, it still serves a purpose. And so, that's a good way to continue using it.
It gets to a really good point, which is that, look, DAOs are really new. And a lot of the time people equate DAO with on-chain coin voting, right? But that they're not homomorphic concepts. A DAO is actually a quite diverse space of different types of decisions and different types of organizations. And coin voting is one consensus mechanism, and there's tons, right? So Coordinape is a different type of consensus mechanism, and a consensus mechanism is really like a little mind. It's something that makes a decision according to a certain set of rules.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a good perspective also in terms of how governance and how consensus works, right?
Yes.
And to look at it as there's tooling to facilitate consensus in a variety of applications, which creates a much more diverse, ecosystem, if you will. And there's operating systems out there, not that we're going to dive too deep into that, but obviously like Moloch and Colony, which I've heard you all have a good relationship. So I'd be interested to see how in the future, all of these mechanisms start gelling into place and creating kind of like a out of the box solution, if you will. It's like, hey, you can choose to take this out of the box solution or plug and play as you wish, as you start creating or developing your DAO.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love Colony. I love Moloch. I think these are great products. And, really they're each suited for different types of specific decision-making. And they're like, if you want to form a small group of people to invest funds together into a common endeavor, like you can't beat Moloch. If you want to build a protocol team with an open team of various contributors, and you want to, you don't want to be limited by the shortfalls of coin voting. Colony is like by far the best concept, and their lazy consensus method of decision making is amazing. Nobody has anything like that.
Maybe we could also talk a little bit about the type of collaboration that's happening in DAOs and the difference between competition and collaboration in, or I guess co-opetition, if you will, and how that's enabling individuals to, have I guess, a different way of working with one another, and even amongst other DAOs, where that's maybe not the traditional way of doing business today, so very unfamiliar to us.
Was there a specific question you just wanted to riff on that?
I don't know if there's a specific question. I'd like to kind of fill that space, because I think that there's something to be said in terms of how DAOs are enabling collaboration and how Coordinape is facilitating the reward mechanisms for individuals collaborating with each other, right?
Yeah. So, there's an interesting thought experiment. Like, imagine if 1/3 of Apple's employees also worked at Microsoft. Can you imagine what that would be like? And, the nature of the firm, as we understand it now, built on top of the legacy governance and legal structures, of meat space, doesn't really allow that. It's the legal constraints, the social constraints, the physical constraints. People haven't figured out how to do that. But in DeFi, a lot of those limitations are gone, and you see a lot of overlap in the way that people work. Like, I remember when I first joined Yearn, one of our big Telegram groups, it's got leaders from tons of different protocols in there, all collaborating together without any competition. I mean, it's really cooperative. And at Yearn, we have like the best security team around. And when other protocols get hacked, even if there are competitors, we go and help in those war rooms, because that's just the community, the kind of place that we're in, and it's amazing. It's new. And it's, Yearn didn't start that. I mean, it's kind of arisen from the nature of this environment we're in. So it poses questions for compensation. We're dealing with this right now at Yearn, trying to understand how to do this. But like, what is it? Or can you work at 2 different projects at the same time? Like, a lot of people do. Like, what are the rules for that? That there's a way. Well, I can't talk about it yet, but the next version of Coordinape is going to really, we think, solve a lot of these problems and allow for, people to, like, this totally new form of work, right? Like, just thinking about the gift circle, for a second. Like, if 90% of the protocols in DeFi have this community gift circle with different streams of monthly money going into it, it's pretty easy to just roll into start, making some friends, get badged into a couple networks, and at very low risk, because badging somebody into a network is extremely small risk for that protocol. You can start just doing stuff, and if you create value, you're going to get paid, and nobody has to decide to hire you. Nobody has to negotiate your salary. There's no non-compete. There's no commitment. You're just making stuff and getting paid through a decentralized process. And you can be in a few of these networks at the same time. Most of us will be, and the money will just kind of flow. So if I'm an attorney and I create a really interesting template for DAO governance, that's going to be useful for a dozen different protocols. And why not get paid by all of them for that? It doesn't have to be property of one.
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky, right? Because I think the traditional mindset when working for an organization is, well, you work for us. The work that you produce is intellectual property, right? And then even after you decide to leave, there may be a non-compete, like, oh, you can't go over there, because then right. You're taking these ideas, you're competing against us. And the idea of not looking at it that way, looking at it more collaboratively, looking at it more as growing an ecosystem, that is so foreign that it's almost difficult to grasp how that could work.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad, really. I mean, this world has been a world of scarcity where people have engaged in zero-sum games of win-lose dynamics, where I believe that, that my desires must come at somebody else's expense, and that I need to protect myself, and that I need to fight. And if you've grown up in environments like this, it's very hard to get out of that mindset. But that is not reality. That's a part of reality. You can choose that reality, but there's others too. And it's this type of thinking that has led the planet to be on the brink of catastrophe, with constant resource extraction, constant exploitation of any avenues possible. It's like, if you've heard of the paperclip thought experiment for the future of artificial general intelligence, that eventually there'll be a machine mind that will become better than human minds, or artificial superintelligence. And let's say its goal is to make paperclips. It'll just turn the whole fucking world into paperclips. Well, this machine has been around for a long time already. And it's turning the entire world into money. And at the end of the day, there's going to be nothing but money. And if we don't change the way that we think, right? And so these ways of thinking, collaboratively in abundance, it's not woo-woo. It's not speculative. Like, you can go and find organizations that work this way now with great success. And that's what I believe we're building in DeFi. It's not about making a shitload of money in reasonable size houses. It's creating a completely new foundation for human collaboration that will be able to scale past these like extremely wicked challenges we have right now, dooming the planet.
So I think now we may be able to, a good time to explore these social graphs or the map in terms of relationship building within a DAO, and the contribution and the rewarding amongst individuals, through Coordinape. Walk me through, the idea of this network, or this map, and how that came about, because the visualization of it is impactful. Like, I have it open right now, at least the one that we have here at Bankless DAO. And for me, the most powerful thing here isn't the number of people that are in here, but the mesh, right?
Yeah.
That spider webbing of interactions in this map. So walk me through maybe where you were coming from, where this map was ideated, and why it looks the way it looks right now.
Yeah, so when we first built the first prototype of Coordinape, and we ran the first epic at Yearn, it was a really exciting moment, and we didn't have a lot of the tooling that we have now. And one of the guys in the Yearn team, Nimrix, he built a little I don't know the name of this type of graph, but it was a circular diagram that showed all of the give transactions from that round. And it was just really cool to see, he gave to this person, gave this. It was this beautiful network graph. I tweeted it at the time, so you can find it in my Twitter history. And that was just really inspiring. And then one of the guys on the Coordinape team, Alex Warren, kind of took that and ran with it. And he built out this, interactive graph tool on the website, on our site. And what it can do is it lets you can select, you see every member of the gift circle is a circular avatar, and you can click on any one of them and you can see an animation, all of the give that they've given out and all the give that they received over that epic. And it's just really beautiful. Alex did an amazing job on it. And it's also just super useful. And, we, from the beginning of this, we knew that the data analysis piece would be super interesting. But, it wasn't until Nimrix and Alex kind of built these tools that it really made it visceral. And, you can imagine, if gift circles are, used broadly across DeFi, this type of dashboard is really crazy. We talk about it as being like a decentralized LinkedIn, where each member owns their own data, right? And is sovereign with that data. And you can, bring your profile to Coordinape, and you can do a bunch of epochs of the gift circle, and you can get a bunch of essentially through that work. And then other people can see that in on your profile if you choose to make it open, or we still haven't figured out how a lot of that's going to work. And it becomes an incredible resume. And you can see all of the connections. You'll be able to see all the connections between all these different teams and over time. That's really just the beginning. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. I think being able to visualize, like you say, the data, right? The information, the history of these relationships, to me, that is a wonderful tool, because again, it goes to show that this is really about the relationships that you're building, the collaboration that you're doing amongst one another, and the value that you're bringing to these organizations, right? I think that's incredibly valuable. But everything that you just explained right now is exactly what, in my mind, I saw this circle being able to evolve to, right? Is beyond just the individual relationships. It's just this historical record of your participation and being able to kind of own that information and being able to leverage that information to create, a representation of yourself across DAOs, whether it be, your participation in governance through voting, through, gift giving, through the actual collaborative effort on initiatives, whether it's programmatic, like you're building something, you're in development, community building, marketing, whatever. All of this really kind of starts creating this a very rich profile of your digital self, right? And I think just adds value to the work that you're doing and creates a much longer lasting impact where you can hopefully continue to add value across the entire ecosystem, not just within a single DAO.
Yeah, and this kind of echoes back to a point we were talking about before. You were saying like IP protections and like working for one person or another. And it's like, what are we actually doing here, right? Like, are we trying to build, some of us certainly are, that's fine, trying to build one like Goliath company to rule them all. Like, that's not why I'm here. Like, that doesn't really matter to me. I think that's the old model. Like, yeah, I want to make a shitload of money, and yeah, I want to make really cool stuff, but that doesn't have to go to one place, and Yearn is the coolest organization I've ever seen. But if it dies, that's okay, because the spirit, the people that are making it, that work, those products will live on in different places. And I think we need to introduce apoptosis to corporate life. This is cellular death. Traditional corporations have no mechanism of dying. They either turn into cancers, or they I don't know how they fizzle out, but they don't have any mechanism like shut down at any point. We can have that. Like, it's not about creating one giant thing. It's about a whole ecosystem of all these different things.
That's all. I hope you're able to take away valuable information from this discussion. If you'd like to learn more about Coordinape, please go to coordinape.com or on Twitter @Coordinape. And as usual, all the links are in the episode's description. Thanks for listening to Crypto Sapiens. If you enjoyed this discussion, please give us a follow, like, and a 5-star review wherever you enjoy your podcast. And stay tuned for our next discussion.